Okay, so I just want to welcome everyone to the workshop today. We're going to be talking about financial scams and identity theft. My name is Gina DiGiusto. I'm an attorney at Housing and Economic Rights Advocates, and we are a legal nonprofit. We're based out of downtown Oakland. We provide a variety of free legal advice and services to consumers on several debt and credit issues. We'll provide a list of all of our services at the end of this presentation. We're also happy to provide copies of these slides if you've participated and would like a copy. And if you would like to contact us for a one-on-one consultation to get to the details of your particular situation, feel free to call our intake line. That information will also be at the end of the presentation. All right, let's get going. A lot in this workshop. We're going to start with talking about safe and affordable credit. And I like to begin with this conversation, at least briefly, is because sometimes when we're talking about scams or especially financial scams, one of the ways we define a scam is when you get yourself into a financial product that is very abusive or problematic. And one of the ways to avoid getting into one of these products is just to understand what to look for when you're evaluating a financial product and how to weigh the pros and cons of that particular either line of credit, credit card, what have you. The second thing that we're going to talk about are just generally consumer scams, red flags, how to identify them and protect yourself. And then we're going to talk about identity theft, how that's slightly different, what to do about it, how to check for it, and then how to avoid it. So as I said, I want to first talk about financial scams and debt traps. That's what we call something where usually a debt trap is when you go and you borrow an additional amount of money to pay back money that you already owe. But the new loan that you take out or the new money that you borrow is very, very, very expensive. It usually has to be paid back in a very short amount of time. And oftentimes these loans are upwards of 100 to 140% interest. They're extremely expensive. So expensive and abusive that usually the person who borrows these types of loans have a very difficult time paying them back. So then they end up having to take out another very expensive loan, pay off that one. And then you just get into this cycle of debt that's almost impossible to get out of. So an example of this type of debt trap would be something like a payday loan, where you provide your paycheck up front, and then on your payday, the loan gets paid back out of your paycheck. Or for example, a tax advance loan where you're expecting to get some type of refund from filing your income taxes. And so you repay the loan out of those proceeds. But these are very, very expensive financial products. And I'm going to show you how expensive they can be in a real example. So first, when you're thinking about borrowing money, the best thing, in my opinion, that you can do to try and avoid getting into a really abusive financial product is to look for what we call the TILA box. It stands for Truth in Lending Act box. It's supposed to be there for most credit lines of credit products. You'll see whenever you think about borrowing money, you'll get a lot of paperwork. There'll be a lot of fine print. Oftentimes it's hard to understand. But no matter what, look for something that looks like on the slide here, this box that has 4 columns in it. And it should always be in this format. And if you can understand this particular box, you will have a good handle on what the actual cost of that potential credit product will be. And then you can really make an educated decision on whether or not you want to borrow that money or not. So when you're looking at this box, on the far left, you'll see annual percentage rate. When you hear annual percentage rate or APR, most folks assume that's just the interest rate of the loan. It's actually both the interest and the other fees and costs associated with that loan, but tabulated or calculated as the cost of your credit at a yearly rate. So usually that figure should be a little bit more than just the interest rate of the loan, but it's roughly similar. And you're supposed to be able to compare APR or the annual percentage rate between products, and that should give you an idea of which product is more expensive. In the second column, you'll find the finance charge. This is the amount that that line of credit will cost you in dollars and cents. So basically, it's the amount of money that you will have to pay back for the right to borrow whatever amount of money that you decided to borrow. And again, I'm about to give you a real life example on the following slide so you can see how this works, practically speaking. The third column is the amount financed. That's the amount of money that you borrowed. So if you take out a $3,000 loan, then usually you're going to see $3,000 in the amount finance column. And then the final column is really just the column B and column C added up together. And that's the total amount of payments that you have to make back to the creditor. So the amount of money you have to pay back for everything at the end of the day. So both the money you borrowed, you have to pay back, and the finance charge. So let's look at two examples on this slide. Let's pretend like you were evaluating these two different loan options, and you were trying to figure out which one is more expensive. On the left is a traditional small dollar loan from a bank or credit union. And on the right is one of those debt trap examples that I was talking about earlier. It's like this would be something equivalent to a check and go, payday loan, tax refund loan, one of those options. Now, if you were just going in somewhere and you said, I need to borrow $2,500, how much do I have to pay back? For both of these loans, the amount of money you pay every month is roughly the same. On the left, for a traditional loan, the monthly payment they tell you is $217. And on the right, they say, well, the payment is about $244. On the left, they say, you have to pay back this money in 12 months. And on the right, they say you have to pay back this money within 2 years. And let's say that that's all you knew about the two loans. On one hand, on the left, you have to pay back the $2,500 in a year at $217 a month. And on the right, $2,500 you pay back over 24 months at $244 a month. Now, if you were just trying to ballpark how much you have to pay, it might sound like, well, I have to pay roughly the same amount of money. It's about $220 to $240. And on one hand, I have to pay it back faster. On the other hand, I have more time to pay it back. But if you look at the TILA boxes comparing these two products, you'll see that one is vastly more expensive than the other. On the left, for example, if you look at the finance charge for the loan from the bank, the finance charge is $109. That means that in exchange for being able to borrow $2,500, you have to pay them an additional $109 for the right to borrow that money. On the right, to borrow $2,500, you have to pay back an additional $3,358 to borrow that money. So effectively, the loan on the right is 33 times as much money and 33 times as expensive as the loan on the left. So whereas on the loan on the left, in total, you'll pay back $2,609 because that's the amount you borrowed plus the finance charge. On the right, you have to pay back $5,858, which is the $2,500 you borrowed plus $3,358 on the right. So really, as you can see, whereas two loans might sound like the repayments are roughly similar, when you get down to how much it's actually costing you, one is definitely cheaper and more affordable than the other. And so that's why when you're thinking about borrowing money, if you're in a pinch and you just need the cash, pay close attention to the terms of the loan because it may not be worth borrowing. It may end up just being just a huge debt trap. So that I like to put out there in terms of evaluating potential financial products. Now, scams can be more than just really crummy loans or credit products. Scams in general are just sophisticated ways that individuals try to get you to provide either your financial information or personal information so that they can make money off of you. So they can make money off of you by giving you really crummy financial products, but they also can just try and get something from you in order to take advantage of your information or to get your money very quickly. So the problem with scams, financial scams, is that they are always changing. There's always some new scam out there. Scammers are really creative. They're always staying on top of like new technology to try and get money out of you. And it's very frustrating because you can't just say, here, what are all the scams? And then you just avoid these. No, they're always changing. So one thing I like to suggest to folks, if they're trying to get a feel for what the current scams are looking like, is that you can go to the Federal Trade Commission's website, which I have provided here on the slide at the bottom, the consumer.ftc.gov/scam alerts. And you can see what types of scams are being reported, but just know that they're constantly changing, which means that you just need to be very cautious with your information, with your financial information, with your personal information, to try and avoid scammers and look out for various red flags. That's the best thing you can do. So some of the more common scams that we have seen, at least historically, will be stuff like charity fraud, where someone tries to get you to pay money to a charity that doesn't actually exist, because they just want you to send money very quickly to them, and then they don't actually represent the charity they say they do. Or healthcare scams, where a good example would be maybe at a fair, there's a trailer that has a little clinic set up that says, hey, we'll give you a free checkup if you provide, all you have to do is give us a copy of your Medicare card and we'll scan it and then make sure you're eligible, and then we'll give you a free checkup. Well, sometimes those are healthcare scams where all they're trying to do is they don't really care about giving you that free checkup. What they're trying to do is get a copy of your Medicare information so that they can potentially use it and abuse it down the line. So what seems like a very nice free service may actually be some type of scam. So just be careful when someone's asking you to hand over your personal information, medical information, financial information, any of that. Another big one that we see are IRS scams. We often get calls at our office from people who say, I got a call from someone. They said it's from the IRS. They said that I owe money, that I need to make an immediate payment. You know, I'm worried. And what I have to explain to our consumers is that the IRS is not going to call you if you are behind on payments. They will send you a written notice. The IRS does not have time to call everybody who's short on their payments. So if you get a call from someone who claims to be from the IRS, you should feel free to hang up, because it is very likely just a scam. Similarly, a few others I'll touch on are investment scams. Someone tries to get you to invest in some type of product. Sometimes you hear of like Ponzi schemes. That's an old school scam. More commonly, you'll hear home repair scams. Someone will come and say, oh, I'll do some really cheap work or home repair for you. And then they'll either use really terrible materials, or they won't complete the job, or maybe they're not licensed and they're just trying to get you to sign up for, you know, some type of repair that they either don't do or it's not worth it. That's very common. Or something like a lottery scam where they say, hey, you've won money. All you have to do is confirm that you are who you say you are, and then we'll send you the money. You know, just give us your social security number, and then, you know, you get the money. These are often just scams to try and get your personal information. So what do you do? How do you flag potential scams? How do you identify them? Here's the best way, or some of the top ways to identify a scam. The first one is, if an offer sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If someone says you won the lottery and you never bought a lottery ticket, then it's probably too good to be true, because how could you even participate in the lottery you never bought a ticket for? If it's too good to be true, probably is. If someone says you are suddenly entitled to a bunch of money from, you know, someone who died, or you know, here's this product that's guaranteed to make you money if you invest, those are very likely too good to be true and very likely a red flag that it's a scam. Another huge red flag to identify a financial scam would be if you feel under pressure to make an immediate decision or to send money immediately. There's some type of time sensitivity to what someone is asking of you. So let's say someone's on the phone, they say that you have a ticket or there's a warrant out for your arrest and you have to pay right away or else someone's going to come get you, which, by the way, I have heard of this scam before. If they're saying you have to make the decision right there, pay right there on the phone immediately, that you can't call back, that you won't have a second chance, that is very likely a red flag that it's a scam or a very problematic call. You should never have to make that decision right away. You should always be given the time to stop and think about it and then return back if you decide, yes, this is something I want to pay for. The next red flag would be that you are being asked for private information, especially something like your social security number or healthcare number. Honestly, there's really almost never any reason to provide your social security number. At best, if you are communicating with a lender that you know that you work with and that you have called them, not somebody who's just calling you out of the blue, then they may ask, for example, for the last 4 digits of your social to confirm your identity, but almost never, ever, ever would there ever be a reason for you to provide your full social security number. And more importantly, you should never be providing this information receiving the call. People, and that this is, for example, the financial institution you work with or your doctor's office. Do not provide this information to someone who's just calling you out of the blue. And then one of the other red flags would be if whoever is talking to you says that they need money or you need to pay, but they only accept money transfers that are immediate or difficult to trace. That would be something like a wire transfer or one of those reloadable debit cards. They're kind of like gift cards that you can buy at the grocery store, or cash, something like that. If somebody's asking you to pay immediately and send money, and then it's very difficult to track that money, that is a big red flag that it's a scam. I have heard many times where I've had many clients, unfortunately, get calls from someone who claims to be from their mortgage company or some other banking institution or someone that they usually work with saying, you owe us money. And then they were instructed to go down to their local store, buy a bunch of those prepaid cards, like the Visa cards, because they don't have a typical credit card number. They buy all of these prepaid cards and then they mail them somewhere. Or worse yet, they're told to read the code on the back of the cards. And then what happens is over the phone, that person now can claim that card, that prepaid card right away. And when you're mailing it, it's not actually necessary. It's just to give you this illusion that you're sending the payment. If you read the code over the phone to whoever's on the phone with you, then they can actually take the money immediately and just leave into the night. These are very common scams. So if you're being asked to send prepaid cards, cash, wire transfers, it's very likely what they're trying to do is get your money as quickly as possible so that they can take your money and disappear as quickly as possible. A few other red flags to think about is that if someone guarantees returns on something, that's almost always a scam. You can never really guarantee somebody that they're going to get money out of something. That's just way too good to be true. The other red flag that I often see is when you're being asked to pay for something completely upfront. So for example, someone shows up at your door, they offer to make repairs on your property, but they want you to pay for the work entirely upfront. Usually that's a red flag. Normally you would be paying in installments as the work progresses. Paying for something all up front is rather questionable. Other red flags would be when someone changes the terms of your contract once work has already started, for example, with home repairs, or if the company that you're working with or who's contacting you, they don't have a number or address in a local telephone directory. You can't find them online. No one's ever heard of them. They don't have a website. If they're really difficult to track down and trace, that's a huge red flag. A final few others would be if you're talking to someone who's unlicensed to do work. So for example, if you're having a contractor do work on your home, but they're unlicensed, that's problematic, because if something goes wrong with that project, then you don't have as many remedies or ways to fix the problem if something goes south. And then finally, if you catch someone intentionally providing false information, of course, that's always going to be a red flag, because if they're lying to you about one thing, how do you know they're not lying to you about something even more important? So my recommendation is not only look out for those red flags, but here are a few other things that you should be doing to try and protect yourself. So the number one thing you should do is take your time. Do never, ever, ever feel rushed to make a decision, to be sending a payment right away without having the opportunity to consult with a family member or a trusted friend or an attorney. If you're being told that there's, for example, a legal action against you, or that you need to do something right away, or a bill needs to be paid, or there's going to be severe consequences, you should always have the opportunity to speak to someone that you trust and confer with them about it before having to make some type of action. So take your time. It's okay, just no matter how rushed they make you feel, to say, okay, I'm gonna hang up, give me your contact information. When I'm ready to do that, I will go ahead and make that payment or set that up. Just give yourself some time to think about it. The other thing is, do your homework, do your research. If someone says they're from your mortgage company, but they're telling you to send the payment to an individual or send prepaid cards somewhere, and it sounds very suspicious, then what I would recommend is hang up on that person and then call your actual lender or mortgage company where you know that they're located, and ask them, hey, I just got a call from someone saying that they were from your bank and that I need to make a payment. Is that correct? And they can verify if it was actually one of their representatives or not. I do that all the time. Always independently check, if someone says they're from somewhere, hang up on them, go to their trusted website and find the actual number for that company and call that number, rather than a number that's given to you over the phone or through an email. Always independently research. Also look up any companies. If they're saying they are calling from a company you've never heard of, always search for them and see if you can get extra information about that company. Other ways you can investigate, for example, if you're worried that it's a healthcare scam, it's called 1-800-MEDICARE, and just see if it's part of some type of scam. If you think you're a potential victim, for example, someone takes your healthcare or Medicare information. If you think you're a victim of a potential investment scam, you can contact the Department of Business Oversight. I provided their information here on the slide. The toll-free number for them is 866-275-2677. They also have companies' financial statements using an online database that you can check there, but you can investigate particular companies if you think you've been a victim of a potential investment scam. Other things that you should also be doing before sending money anywhere or giving your personal information away is to just ask questions. Get contact information of whoever's contacting you, verify that what they're telling you is correct. Do not give out sensitive information right away. Make sure that you beforehand consult with someone you trust about it. You get a call from someone who says, oh, you're being sued on this. Call an attorney if it's something having to do with a lawsuit. If someone's saying, oh, I've got this great new product, would you like to invest in it? Talk to someone you trust about it, a friend or a family member, saying, hey, I've been asked to invest in this. What do you think? And usually by talking it through with someone you trust, you can actually notice more red flags and make you realize, maybe that wasn't such a good offer after all. Also, don't pay by cash or wire transfer it if at all possible. I know that sometimes it's easier to especially send cash by mail or what have you, but these are non-traceable forms of payment. And if something goes wrong and you are a victim, it's very difficult to fix that and get your money back. And then finally, make sure to use online businesses. If you are going to use an online business, check the rating sites that you trust, Better Business Bureau, something like that, or, just to see how credible does this business appear to be. Okay, so that has to do with protecting yourself against scams in terms of checking for red flags and ways to slow down the process. The other thing that you can do that I don't think is usually, heavily discussed is that another way to avoid scammers or to avoid unnecessary calls is just to also put your information on the do not call registry. So the Federal Trade Commission has and manages the do not call registry, where you can either call or go online to their website, the donotcall.gov website. You put in your phone number, and then your name is supposed to be put in this registry that telemarketers are supposed to not call your number. And if you feel like you're getting calls from telemarketers that you're not supposed to, you can actually call the FTC or the Federal Trade Commission, do a complaint, and they do take legal action against these telemarketers. The other thing that you should also do is if you do get calls from telemarketers to tell them to put you on their do not call lists. Same thing with businesses. Tell them to not sell your name to other companies, because sometimes even if you're on the do not call registry, sometimes, let's say you've signed up you donate to a certain organization or you've signed up for something, sometimes hidden in there is a waiver where you give them consent to sell your information, or they share your information with other nonprofits or other folks who are trying to collect money. You need to make it very clear whenever you either see that to not give consent, or if you're getting calls or solicitations, to specifically tell them, take my name off your list and do not sell my information down the road, so that you don't continue to get bombarded with solicitations. And then the other one that I think is very helpful is to also opt out of credit agencies' pre-approval offer mailing lists. A lot of us get these in the mail. You get offers for credit cards, and they'll say, hey, you're pre-approved for a credit card at this interest rate. Or a 0% interest rate up front, something that sounds really good. And you say, why am I always getting this? It's because you are part of, within the credit reporting agencies, they can provide your limited information to potential creditors who want to see if they want to make you an offer. But you can actually opt out of this entirely by either calling the number on the screen, the 888-567-8688, or the optoutprescreen.com. If you go online and sign up, you can actually remove your name off of those pre-approval offer mailing lists so that you stop getting those solicitations. And by taking your name out of the conversation, taking your information off of these mailing lists and out of these registries, you're starting to limit the communications that you receive and limit the chances that you're getting a call from a scammer. Okay. Now, it would be great if we could avoid all scams, but sometimes we do wind up somehow having our information taken, our personal information, and it can cause havoc. So identity theft is when someone takes your personal information, they pretend to be you, they spend your money, or they take out lines of credit in your name, and they do all of this without your consent. So identity theft can be, and often is, in fact, not always from someone who's a stranger, but can often happen within households. I get a lot of calls from folks who say, my grandkid stole my credit card and used it without my permission. That is technically a form of identity theft because they are using your information without your consent. They're using your line of credit without your consent. But there can be instances where it's strangers too. So other examples would be someone manages to get your personal information, like a Medicare number, and so then they use your medical care number, your information, to get medical care in your name, even though they're not you. Or, for example, someone steals your information and takes out a credit card in your name, or some other loan in your name. Or someone files taxes in your name using your social security number. These are examples of someone using information without your consent to benefit them financially. So some of the ways to flag if this might have been you, or if you think you might be a victim of identity theft, is some examples would be if you see withdrawals from your bank account that you can't explain, charges that you know you didn't make. I had personally, I had with some charge a while back where it was like purchased for a bunch of tires out of Texas. And I hadn't been to Texas, and I certainly knew I hadn't purchased a bunch of tires, but that was a suspicious withdrawal on my bank account. Sometimes you can get bills, or excuse me, you stop getting bills or other mail. If you notice that you usually expect a statement from your creditor once a month, and all of a sudden you notice that those bills aren't showing up, that can be a sign of identity theft, especially if it's within the home. I've had an example of a client where her grandson was using her credit card without her information, and then he started to take her credit card bills out of the mail so she couldn't see that he had been using the credit cards. And so for her, the fact that her statement stopped showing up was a big red flag that someone might have been using her credit card without her permission. Other red flags could be something like merchants stop accepting your checks, or you start getting calls from debt collectors about debts that you know do not belong to you. Or if you get bills from medical providers for services you didn't use, you get a bill for an x-ray when you never even got an x-ray, or you get a bill for dental services when you hadn't been to the dentist all year. That's a big red flag when someone potentially is using your information. Other things could be if you get a notice from the IRS that more than one tax return was filed in your name, or that you have income from an employer that you didn't work for. That can be a red flag that someone's using your social security number unlawfully. And then another red flag could be that, for example, you get a notice that your information was compromised by a data breach. This was huge. There's, oftentimes you'll see in the mail, or excuse me, in the news, there'll be one of the big credit reporting agencies will have a huge breach, or maybe you get a notification from an old college or a doctor's office that your information was compromised. Then sometimes what that means is maybe they accidentally shared your information when they shouldn't have, and there's potentially somebody who has access to your information that you don't want to have. So those are some of the red flags, but what can you do about it? So well, maybe not all of us, but many of us do, and they don't actually open them up and review the bills. I say, read your statements, check your bills, read the explanations of benefits. If you get them from healthcare providers, check to see what services have been provided, look out for bills, make sure they're showing up, and always, if possible, check your credit report. Not just checking your credit report to see what your credit score is or what's on your credit report. Checking your credit report can be very important just to see if someone's accidentally, or not accidentally, if someone has used your information unlawfully and you just didn't even realize. Oftentimes you could figure it out just by pulling your credit report. So the cool news is that you actually have the right to access your credit report for free once a year from each of the 3 major credit reporting agencies. That's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So basically, it's like getting 3 free credit reports every year. And right now, during the pandemic, they've actually increased that so that you can pull your credit report every week through April in order to check your credit report. So I recommend that folks take advantage of this right now during the pandemic, the ability to pull your credit report more frequently. These are considered what we call soft pulls. They do not have an impact on your score. They do not lower your credit score. So you should feel comfortable to pull your free credit report if possible, to review them and just make sure that everything looks like it should. If you're reviewing your credit report and you see any of these following items on your report, it's a red flag that you are a potential victim of identity theft. So if you are going through your report and at the top of that, for example, let's say you pulled a TransUnion report, it has a bunch of addresses or phone numbers or contact information that has nothing to do with you. If you see a social security number that doesn't have to do with you, that can either mean that your file, your credit report file, was mixed up with somebody else's, or that someone has taken your information and has been applying for credit with information that does not belong to you. So that is a potential red flag. Another red flag would be if you go through your credit report and you see a line item or credit account that you did not open. If you see, for example, a bunch of store credit cards on your account that you know you did not take out, all of a sudden you see a Macy's and a Target and a Old Navy card, and you don't shop at any of those places, that's a red flag that you are potentially a victim of identity theft. Another one would be accounts in collection for debts you did not incur. If someone is saying, hey, you owe us all this money, you didn't pay your bills, and you didn't even use that credit card, or it's not even an account you ever took out, that is a red flag. You're a potential victim. And then finally, in your credit report, at the very bottom of the report, there's something called an inquiry section. This section is supposed to let you know who has pulled your credit report. And there's actually two different portions of the inquiry section. One is what's called the hard pull section, or the section that shows the accounts that you actually applied for. The second portion tends to be what's called a promotional inquiry section, where they're just sending you information, or they wanted to get some of your limited information to creditors, wanted to get some of your limited information to see if they wanted to make you an offer and send you a promotional offer in the mail. Though the promotional inquiry section, you don't need to worry about. But if in the hard pull section, or in the section that indicates that you actually applied for those lines of credit, that's what you need to pay attention to. If you see a bunch of companies that you know you didn't apply for any type of credit account with them, that's a huge red flag that you are a potential victim of identity theft. Because sometimes what can happen is that someone steals your information, and let's say they go and they try and apply for, I don't know, a Marshall's card on using your information. And even if they were denied the credit card because they failed that application effort still shows up on your credit report. So even if you don't see the actual Marshall's account show up on your credit report, it could be you can see the inquiry section show up, showing that someone tried to apply for a credit card in your name from that company. And that can let you know, hey, someone's trying to use your information to apply for credit cards in your name or some other kind of loan in your name. And it's a big red flag. So if you think you are a victim of identity theft, you are not helpless. There are solutions. They can be a little overwhelming to deal with. However, there are solutions, so just know you have protections. So the basic 3 steps, and we'll talk about these in a little more detail, is that you need to place a fraud alert with the credit reporting agencies first, then pull a copy of your credit reports from all 3 major agencies and scan for any suspicious accounts or information. Collect all of that information because you're going to want to address each of those problematic items on your credit report. And then you're going to want to create an identity theft report with the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, because that identity theft report is going to help you, because it will be a piece of paperwork that you can then send to all of the credit agencies or potential debt collectors, letting them know, hey, this was not me. This person who is trying to use your services or borrow money from you, that was not me. I'm a victim of identity theft. Please get rid of those accounts. So first, like I said, place a fraud alert with the credit reporting agencies. You just need to let them know you're a victim of identity theft. And what they'll do is they'll put a temporary fraud alert on your account for 90 days. And what it does is it just puts a little red flag on your account so that if someone's continuing to use your information, your account has now been flagged so that potential creditors realize, hey, this might be a problematic account. It looks like there's a fraud alert here. And it deters scammers from potentially being able to take out credit in your name. Now, there is something where you can get an extended fraud alert on your credit report, but in order to get that more extended fraud alert on your report, you want to provide the credit reporting agencies with a copy of your FTC report. So once you go through the 3 steps that I previously outlined, and you have a copy of your identity theft report, then you want to circle back to the credit reporting agencies with a copy of that report saying, I would like an extended fraud alert on my credit report. You really should only have to do this with one reporting agency, and then they're supposed to communicate with the other 2 credit reporting agencies. that you've been a victim of identity theft. But I always recommend that whoever you call, whichever the 3 credit bureaus that you call, ask them to basically communicate that information to the other 2 agencies. Or if you want to be extra safe, just go ahead and call all 3 agencies, just to make sure that the information has been passed on. As I said, you should also pull your free credit reports from the 3 bureaus. You can order the copy of them online at annualcreditreport.com. And I think the next slide has that information. And some of the other things you should know is that the credit reporting agencies, if you're a victim of identity theft and you can send that FTC report to them, they will also usually allow you to pull your report more frequently for free so that you can monitor your reports on an ongoing basis to just make sure that no one is still using your information down the line. The other thing that you might think about doing is that when you contact the credit reporting agency, ask them to only show the last 4 digits of your social security number on your report, or limit how much information is on your report so that it can't get into the hands of someone who shouldn't have that information. And then finally, as I mentioned, you want to do an identity theft report with the FTC. It's very simple. If you don't have the ability to use the link that's provided on the screen, all you need to do is Google Federal Trade Commission Identity Theft Report, and you'll see this screen pop up here. This is what the website looks like. And you just click the Get Started button, and then the website asks you questions. It will prompt you. It will say, what kind of issue is this? Is this about a credit card? Is this about medical debt? It will ask you details about what happened. And then after you answer all of the questions as it goes along, it will populate a report for you that you can print out and send to the credit reporting agencies. You can send it to any creditors who you think that there was an illegal account opened in your name. You can send it to debt collectors if you think that they're collecting on debt that's a result of identity theft. Basically, you want to get this report from the FTC so that you can use it to protect yourself and send it to any of these potential creditors or debt collectors so that they will remove the account from their file and take it off of your credit report, and so that you are no longer being held responsible for the damage that somebody else did using your information. Now, I just want to let folks know that when you do this, when you go through the steps of pulling your report, getting your FTC report, and then you contact all these creditors or debt collectors or credit reporting agencies with proof that you're a victim of identity theft, they are supposed to respond to these and either remove the information off your credit report, stop all collection activity against you. If you're already being sued, they're supposed to stop the lawsuit. If they continue to come after you for a debt or some type of line of credit for an account that you never opened up, then, and they are aware that you're a victim of identity theft and you've sent them the Federal Trade Commission report, then you could potentially have some types of claims against them because now they're abusing your consumer protections as a victim of identity theft. So if you find yourself in that position where you're a victim of identity theft, you've taken all the necessary steps to create an FTC report, to contact the bureaus, to contact the creditors, to contact any debt collectors and let them know you're a victim, and they're still insisting on collecting the money from you or holding you accountable, please, by all means, contact your local legal aid office, contact our office, get some assistance, because you might have some rights and a little bit more leverage than you realize to get this activity to stop. So in addition, you should feel free, if you need help contacting these agencies to let them know you're a victim. I have provided a couple sample letters in these slides that you can use. These letter templates are also available online from the Federal Trade Commission. I just wanted them to be there so that you realize you don't have to just recreate the wheel. This information is available for you. They're easy template letters that you just put in your information so that you have an idea of what to say in these letters. But there are 3 examples here in the slides. The first one is a letter to send to the credit reporting agencies if you think that there's a line item or information on your report that's unlawful or not actually correctly associated with you because you're a victim of identity theft. You can send them this letter. Here's another example letter where it's you find fraudulent charges on existing accounts. Let's say you open up a credit card bill and you're seeing a bunch of charges that you don't believe that you charged to that account. This is an example of a letter you could send to them to get them to remove those charges. And then similarly, here's a sample dispute letter of a new account that was opened in your name. Let's say you get a bill for an account that you never opened, or you see it on your credit report. You can send this letter to the creditor to let them know, hey, I did not open up this account. And as I said at the beginning of this presentation, these slides, we're happy to share them with you. We're happy to share sample letters or templates if you need them. You can also find them on the FTC website. So feel free to use these letters if you think you're a victim of identity theft. And then I'd like to just end this portion with just a few tips to try and prevent identity theft from happening. It's really difficult today to completely avoid it because so much of our information is available online. There's so much information about us available on the dark web. And so it's almost impossible to completely protect your personal information, but there are things that you can do to make it less likely that you will be a victim. So for example, always protect your personal information as much as possible. Lock up your financial records, even if they're in your home. Put them in a safe, secured, locked space so that if, for example, there's a break-in in your home or someone breaks into your car, that your information isn't just sitting there for someone to steal. Also, please limit the things that you carry with you. The number one thing I always discourage my clients to do is to stop carrying their Social Security cards in their wallets or purses. That is a terrible idea because if your wallet or purse gets stolen or forgotten or lost, that is a very critical document that you have now just had taken from you. The other thing is that shred the documentation that you don't need, or especially if you have account statements, bank statements, if it has account numbers on it, please shred your documentation. And then, as we said multiple times, do not share personal information unnecessarily. With regard to your computer or mobile devices, make sure that you have purchased antivirus software and firewalls to protect your device and the information. We keep a lot of personal information on our computers and devices these days, so make sure that they're adequately protected. Don't open up files or links from strangers. The number one way I see that scammers get money is that they send fake emails to folks with links that are either meant to have you send information or bugs. Do not open up emails from anybody that you don't recognize, that you don't work with, or you don't have accounts. One thing I like to tell people is if you're curious, if you want to make sure that an email is from a company that you think it is. So for example, let's say you get an email from someone who says they're from Amazon. What I like to do is I take those emails and I click the forward button, and then I look down into the body of the email. And if you see the sender, if the sender's name is something really crazy, it's got a bunch of numbers and letters, and it says from some random company or individual, that is very unlikely a legitimate Amazon email. That was likely a scammer posing as an Amazon employee to try and get you to respond or click on the link. So before you respond or click on links to things, you might want to double check and verify who the actual sender is. Because sometimes when you receive an email, it will say a sender is from one place. But if you click on the forward button, you'll see down in the body of the email, it was actually a sneaky scam sender, and you can avoid responding to those emails. Also, make sure you wipe out your old computers, as some of us will donate our computers or throw them away or take them, to be refurbished. Always make sure before you send your computers along that you have them wiped clean. Ask for someone who you trust, who knows how to do this, to help you remove that information, because someone who's very savvy with computers knows how to pull information that you failed to wipe off the computer and steal that information and likely use it for purposes that you do not consent to. Also, make sure you're using safe Wi-Fi passwords and encrypted data. Be very careful using those free Wi-Fi for example, if you're at a cafe and they have the free Wi-Fi services, be careful using that. It's very open network. People can easily steal your information. I strongly recommend that you avoid sending any sensitive information by email or saving it while you're on one of those data networks or on one of those Wi-Fi networks. Wait until you're home and you're in a secured location, you're using a secured network before doing something like that. And then finally, continue to stay vigilant. Collect your mail every day, pay attention to your bill cycles, review your statements. Just make sure that you're really thinking about what's coming in, what you're seeing on statements, what you're sending. Just do your very best to stay on top and pay attention. And with that, if you do happen to find yourself a victim of a scam or identity theft, and despite your best efforts, it happens. Look, it happens to a lot of us, and there should be no shame involved. Like I said, it's very difficult to completely protect your information. If you find yourself in that position, feel free to reach out. Here is a list of all of the services we provide at our office, including identity theft issues or scam issues, but we also help with any, of these debt and credit matters. Our phone number is at the bottom. It's that 510-271-8443 extension 300. It doesn't say it there, but our intake line is extension 300. So if you want to get some one-on-one services for your situation, feel free to reach out to us. Again, 510-271-8443 extension 300. We're happy to provide you with some information or advice if you happen to be a victim or need help with any of these financial issues. And with that, we are going to wrap up this presentation. I thank you for participating. I know that if you're watching this or participating, it means that you think you've potentially been a victim of a scam or you're worried about it. So I hope that you found some of this information very useful. And we thank you for joining us today.